Hey, boys and girls, buffaloes and bunnies, and what have you. Weather report for Spooky Day 2022. It's Spooky Day. Anyway, how y'all doing?
I'm doing great. How about you guys?
Well, the world is a weird place.
I think mine is the cliche fair to Midland or Midland. There's a Midland, Texas. I don't know if that's the one they're talking about, but yeah, fair to Midland.
Yeah, I got to visit Thrall, Texas, and I was enthralled with Thrall. Population 897 or something like that. And it's like a little tiny town in Texas out by Taylor and Pflugerville.
I bet you they have a prison.
Yeah,
all these small towns have prisons these days.
Yeah. Well, that was where my sister-in-law went to high school, and where my brother and she got married, and it was pretty cool to go there. So I was thrilled and enthralled with Thrall. But nobody else was. Like, all the Texans were like, meh, it would never go there. Would never go to Thrall. And then we went to an old farmhouse, and on top of the old farmhouse was falling down. It was where my sister-in-law grew up. And on top of it was a fucking 2-foot-high vulture. And this vulture, it was amazing. And then I wanted to walk up to the farmhouse because I had been there when I was 15 years old, right? And that was a long time ago. And it was all overgrown. And they said, no, if you walk in there, the rattlesnakes will fucking eat you alive. You know, I'd be be a 911 situation. Yeah, there's so many rattlesnakes that you can't get near the place.
Wow.
Well, that's just a lunch opportunity if you're a little low on ground turkey or something like that in the freezer.
Well, the vulture was either there to eat the snakes or to eat dumb Minnesotans who walked into that farm.
Yeah. Either way, there's going to be a meal for the vulture.
There's going to be a meal. Yeah, it was pretty interesting.
Wow.
But anyway, so today I wanted to talk about I want to make a point, and I want to make some parallels, and I want to say something coherently, which is very, very difficult for me with the way my mind is like a fucking rodeo, and I don't often get my points across. But I want to make let's see if I can pop this up here. I want to make a parallel. I don't know if can you see that? Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Make it big.
You want to make it bigger, like put James and I to the side? There you go.
Yeah. I want to make a parallel between bad children, badly behaved children, cancer victims, drug addicts, and dementia victims. And I want to talk a little bit about diseases and how they affect families and what happens and stuff. And the thing is, like, if you have a misbehaved child, like a toddler, right, a 3-year-old, mm-hmm. you scold them, you punish them, you do whatever, you talk to them, you tell them what the rules are, and you get them to, obey the rules. And the toddler learns, by the time they're adults, they've learned all these rules, and they actually change their behavior, and they're pretty good. But now imagine you have a cancer victim. You have a loved one who's suffering from cancer, and they maybe they quit eating. They're not taking care of themselves. They're sleeping all the time. They're not getting exercise, and they're falling victim to cancer. And you get this idea that you can if you just talk to them, you can get them to beat this cancer by better nutrition, or do this or do that. And so You start doing that, but at some point, when you have cancer victims who's dying, you do not yell at them when they're dying, when they're laying down, when they're not behaving like normal adults, right?
Mm-hmm.
You don't sit and scold them. You don't give them rules. You don't try to intervene in any way,
Right.
because the cancer, you know that the cancer is something that you are not going to fix by giving them rules or yelling at them, right?
Mm-hmm.
But when it comes to drug addicts, okay, we think that all we have to do is give the drug addict a talking to and tell them how you're affecting the family and what you're doing, and all of that. And then the drug addict is going to, listen to you and being a rational person, and he's not going to use drugs anymore. Okay.
Right.
And then you have the dementia victim, and people with dementia are people that are usually older than us in all of our lives. They have been the person that scolded us, give us the rules, and told us what to do, right? Took care of us, like my
Right.
mom, and they start behaving badly like toddlers, and they start doing inexplicable things that you do not understand. And your first reaction is to yell at them, to reason with them, to try to reason with them, to scold them, to the same as with a drug addict. You think you're going to fix it the same way you can fix a toddler. Now, out of this list, the toddler is the only one that can be fixed. None of the other three can be fixed by any fucking thing that you do. The only thing you do is to stick with them. All three of these, other than bad children, the other three victims, or basically diseases, are incurable. They're all terminal, except for the drug addict has a little bit of hope. Now there's a way for the drug addict to get better, but the other two, you're kind of fucked. You're dealing with the end of life, and it's really weird. And what happens is those three diseases at the bottom not only affect the person that has the disease, but completely infects the rest of the family and fucks them up too, for life, for the rest of their lives. Even after that person passes away, you are going to suffer the consequences of all the things you did up to that point. And you're going to feel real bad about yelling at them, when you realize. But now, the thing I know about is drug addiction. And, my kids, they talk to me, they give me a talking to, they tell me how much I'm hurting them and how bad I've been and all that stuff. And I'm like, yeah, I'm never going to do that again. And I cried, and I don't want to hurt you. But 3 days later, inexplicably, I would take drugs again, or drink, or get drunk. And I had a come to Jesus moment once at 2 a.m. with my son when I was upstairs, and I was in tears telling him that more than anything in the world, I wanted to stop using cocaine. And he said, "Why don't you just stop?" And I said, "Dylan, in 3 days, I am not going to be this person. I know that. I know I have no control over what my mind is going to do to me in 3 days. That I have absolutely no control." And I was in tears because I was so frustrated that I was up against a disease where I could not control my mind. I could not guarantee to you that I'm not going to use again. And that was the most heartbreaking thing that has ever happened to me. And it was the most frightening thing that had ever happened to me. It was like I realized that I had this disease of drug addiction and alcoholism, and there wasn't a fucking thing that I could do to fix it. And yet I did manage to put together 16 years of sobriety, and I managed to have a moment where my entire life changed, and my entire life had to change in order to solve that problem. And then I solved it one day at a time, and I'm still solving it one day at a time. So I got out of this. Okay, I didn't die from this, but I have a lot of friends who did. But these three things are very, very similar, and I have there is a real strong tendency in this country to yell at people that are mentally ill and try to scold them, reason them out of their mental illness. And you cannot fix mental illness with fucking rules, with anger, with confrontation. There's nothing you can do. It's just like cancer.
and especially not at the laity level where you're not a trained therapist with plans and
Right.
strategies and
Right.
schedules and things.
Yeah. And the person with dementia, it's the same as the drug addict. They're going to be fine one day. They're going to be absolutely lucid, and they're going to say, "Oh, yeah, I realize I did wrong. I shouldn't do that. I'm not going to do that again." And 2 days later, they're doing it again, because that is the nature of mental illness. Your mind is the only thing that we trust our minds every day. Like all of us who are healthy, we trust our minds to guide us as to what we're going to do, what our behavior is. But when you get fucking dementia or you're a drug addict, you can't trust your mind. Your mind is what's wrong. That's the part that's broken. And it would be like if you had a bad lawnmower or a robot, right? A robot that was misbehaving because of a circuit that was firing bad, right? It's going to keep misfiring and probably get worse. And that's kind of the point I wanted to make. So,
hey,
did I make that clear?
Yes. At some point, Midnight wants to make a contribution to this topic.
Well, okay.
Do you want me to put a link out now, or you want to wait?
Well, let's hear what you guys have to say about what I just said. And if you have anything to, if I wasn't clear, please, I want to be very clear about this, because it's a fucking important topic for all of us are going to deal with. I mean, every single one of us are going to deal with one of these things in our lives, right?
Yeah, I think my chances are more likely to be the thing as far as dementia or something like that.
Well, yeah, Scott, we'll talk about that backstage.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay, I'm going to go put my diaper on.
Your issue. Right, yeah, we'll talk about your issue.
But, yeah, as far as mental health issues, yeah, you just, it's it takes a village, I guess you would say, but it needs to be a well-informed and well-behaved village. In other words, you're taught and you've practiced and the kinds of boundaries you can follow and how to maintain those boundaries with the other person who has the mental illness. Otherwise, you're just going to be sucked into a dysfunctional system, and it's going to affect you. You're going to become sicker. But you want the opposite to happen. You want the patient. I'm just going to call him the patient because I don't know how else to label it. The patient needs to get better, and everybody else needs to get better as a result.
Yeah. But like if a person with dementia says the sky is green, and you want to say no, the sky is blue, you don't do that. You say yeah, it is green, but it kind of has a bluish tint to it, and they'll say yeah, it does kind of have a bluish tint to it. And then eventually they'll see that it's blue again, right? And or not, they may think, may go to their grave insisting it's green. You don't fucking argue with them. You can't argue with them.
Right.
Anyway.
Yeah. We might as well let Midnight in because I've got to look up something for work, and that may take me a few minutes, so I'm not going to be fully engaged with the conversation.
Let me send him a link.
Okay, so Midnight, you're going to be sent a link, and you can contribute and deal with that issue about how did I manage to improve myself, when it's not an addiction, but it's a mental illness, which is, I wish I knew more about family systems, psychology studies. I think it has to do with there was a thing called systems theory. I know that was big in biology as well for at least 20 years ago, and then applied to family therapy and family psychology, how trauma gets shared or passed down. In other words, the way when there's an individual that has been traumatized or is a traumatizer in the family, or even if it's a traumatic event, you're going to deal with it in a certain way. And so how maybe your parents dealt with a trauma from their parents is going to affect their behavior towards you, as you grow up. And so you might have ways of of being and ways of coping with particular issues that are just, not the best way to do it, but that's all you know. And it may contribute to a decline in the quality of your life, or at least a decline in the opportunities to have a better quality of life, because your great grandfather was traumatized in a way, and it affected the family, for multiple generations.
Yeah. One other angle I want to add to this is that in Western societies that are Christian controlled, we have this idea that your mind and your soul are in complete control. You have the will to modify all of that. That you can control your mind, right? You can control your behavior, and we have this shaming attitude, and that's why we shame mental illness, and we don't shame cancer victims when they're dying. We don't shame people with broken legs because they can't run around the house, right?
Right.
So, but we shame fucking mentally ill people because we have the idea that the mind is some kind of a God-given spirit thing, right? And it's like bullshit. So anyway,
right.
So I'm going to send Midnight a link, and I want to hear from you, James.
So a few things real quick. If anybody has a link to Derek Lambert's recovery channel, I don't have it on me, but if anybody has it, that'd be a great link to share somewhere.
I will share it in the description. I'll go dig it up.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
So then the next thing would be like, at least in America, and to an extent, the larger world, we owe a lot of our stigmas about mental illness to religion.
Yeah.
And I think most of us realize this. So it's Christianity in the forefront that spent generations and generations, their entire history demonizing mental illness, really. And so it was always categorized as spiritual warfare, right? There's invisible, unseen forces, good and evil, battling over our souls, and that's the real reason that for anxiety or depression or schizophrenia or anything else. And so if you had these struggles, no matter how common or uncommon, no matter how mild or severe, it was always, oh, well, you're not praying enough, or you're not praying hard enough, or you don't believe strongly enough, or you're not going to congregation enough, or it's because you're battling with your sinful urges, and Satan's using that to get into your soul, and it's a test from God, or it's a test from the devil, and all this other crap. So those cultures, those religious fundamentalist cultures, they created a lot of mental illness of their own. And then they would turn around and blame the victims and say, oh, well, look, you're not spiritual enough. And then that would just make the problem worse, because now the victim's being blamed, and they're being ostracized and alienated from the social support network, the family that they need. And so
there is a warm, fuzzy unifying factor, what do they call that? Universal kind of aspect for religion there, in that just about every religion I know of kind of hates psychology. The Scientologists,
I wonder why.
The
and
Mormons, everybody, they all seem to have a beef against psychology.
And they think they can fix things like being gay. Like you can fix being gay by just training the person and putting them in a camp and fucking
Of course, remember, so did psychologists for a while.
Yeah. Oh,
they
yeah.
would do aversive therapies and things like that.
Yeah. So there's okay. We're gonna get to you next, Midnight. But there's one thing I wanted to bring up here, and that is there's a book called The Family Crucible. And The Family Crucible, I read it about 30 years ago. But the really interesting thing is this guy talks about a story where he had the parents brought in their misbehaving teenage daughter, and their teenage daughter was just out of control. I don't know if it was drugs, sex, or parties, or staying up late, not listening, staying out all night, that sort of shit. So we had a problem teenager, right? So he brought him in, and he slowly realized that the teenager had been elected by the entire family to be the focus of their dysfunction. And the real dysfunction was between the mom and the dad. And they kept putting it on the teenager, and the teenager in a lot of ways was complicit and was somewhat subconsciously happy to take the role of being the focus of what was wrong with the family.
You just
But in
described
the
my
end,
life. Stop.
okay,
Jesus Christ.
but in the end, and this whole book is about how families form a disease structure. And if you have a family member who has cancer, you are going to get that disease. Your family is going to restructure around the disease. And you know, in that case, you have an actual disease inside the person. But sometimes we elect a bad person in the family, and we all talk about them and gossip about them and focus and whatever. And that happens with dementia patients too, where you know that will be the focus of the entire family. And what they're missing is that there's dysfunction in every one of us, and we all got some shit we got to fix.
Yeah.
But anyway, go ahead, Midnight.
But no, I just wanted to say that what you describe is very similar to what
You-
I went through because I was used as a fucking punching bag, so to speak. Right? I
Yeah.
was the outcast. I was the whipping boy, the scapegoat, right? Because I was different, because I was albino, right? I was
Yeah.
disabled. Well, you know, when my mom, dad, and sister
You stop,
were,
yeah.
it was just like, what the fuck? Am I that teenager? Was that book written about me?
You should read that book. You really like that book, Midnight.
definitely. The family crucible. That's definitely interesting.
There's
But
a link in my description to the book.
oh, that's
So,
good. I definitely have to pick that up. But like I wanted to come in because I found the discussion interesting. Right
Okay.
now, for me, it's like, you know, I've had to deal with complex PTSD for like many goddamn years. You know, over like 30 years it accumulated.
Yeah,
Um,
same.
I've actually like I've talked to, you know, in 2000, like in around 2020, after a certain very fucked up event happened, I decided, you know what, I need to further improve, because before that I was improving, but not really, you know, not really fast enough. I don't know. It's just another thing to where, you know, to where after that I began reading into it. I read about complex PTSD, and and a lot of the symptoms that they were talking about, like, is stuff that I've gone through. And before you jumped down my throat about self-diagnosing, I have talked to professionals about, you know, about it, about it. So it's not like I just accepted the first thing I read and ran with it. So I needed to put that caveat before everybody's like, midnight. You shouldn't self-diagnose. Okay. So, you know, so after, you know, after that, I've slowly, you know, read books on it, read books on psychology, trying to figure out how to, you know, how to improve myself. I did try going to therapists here and there, but honestly, my luck with therapists has been bad. Like,
yeah.
the one I have now is all right. Like, we just started seeing her like a couple of weeks ago, like 2 months ago. Right after my girlfriend and I broke up. Actually, no, it's like a month and a half ago, but whatever. But yeah, most honestly, most of the progress I've done, as you know, has been through my own efforts. And talking to people like Speed, talking to people like Immutable, talking to people like, you know, James has helped also. But yeah, it's like,
Yeah.
I don't, I don't fully agree with you, Speed, but I don't fully disagree. It's like I find myself in the middle here, right? Because, you know, because obviously shaming people for, you know, for their mental illness isn't good, right? But
Right.
telling them that telling them that they don't have the power to change, that they will always be like this. In my opinion, it's doing just as much damage.
Well, no, you never want to tell them that, but you don't want to try to fix them by scolding them. Is my
Well,
point.
no,
Right?
yeah, obviously,
It ain't gonna
obviously,
fucking
like,
work. Shaming or scolding or
yeah.
making rules, and like with dementia, there probably is no way to fix that one, right? There's
Well,
ways
no,
to
no,
medicate
that's
it
yeah,
better.
dementia. You need to like physically, you need to like physically stimulate cell growth, in order to fix dementia.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because it's a decay. It's a decay of the brain. That's
Yeah.
like
Hopefully,
physical, not mental.
they're working on solving that one. They have a number of really good research
Yeah,
pieces on it, but not yet. Not yet.
but yeah, I remember. Oh, God, I really wish I had a better memory, because I do remember reading the book "The Body Keeps the Score," to where the guy was, where the guy was talking about how, how I like how, due to due to due to due to trauma, like what we perceive isn't always reality, right?
Yeah.
Like if
Yeah.
if you're in constant danger mode, you're gonna see threats where they're not there.
Yeah.
Like rationally, there's no threat, but emotionally, and like it's really fascinating to me how the brain works. Like, you know what I mean? It's like the brain doesn't really doesn't know the difference between an imagined event and a real event. Now, obviously, obviously, humans have rationality. That helps them distinguish between the two, but the brain itself doesn't know that. I
Yeah.
always found that fascinating.
Yeah. Perception's a whole lot of it. But there's a
Yeah,
what the fuck else was I got? There's another broader aspect of this. We all have behavioral problems. Like some of us eat wrong. We don't exercise enough. There are things we want to do in our lives, and
We
we're
talk over
constantly
other people.
yeah. I mean,
talk
I
over
would
other
say,
people.
just to
Thank
add
you.
to it,
Yeah,
I would say I have a food addiction. Does that make me an addict?
yeah. Um, I got this tool.
Power. And now I have the power.
Okay, you know what? I love that. Even though I do not like the remake of of
Yeah,
He-Man and whatever, that was good. I have the power. There's only
yeah.
power, and I have the
But
power.
there's this Buddhist concept of karma, which is so fucking misunderstood by Hollywood Buddhists in the
Yeah,
West.
it is.
Karma is about habits in your brain, bad karma and good karma. Like a really common meme that we'll all understand is you end up marrying the same person over and over again, and getting divorced. You always end up in the same relationships over and over again, and the common denominator is you. You know, we follow the same trends and patterns. So once we get into a pattern, like and alcoholism is kind of like that. But we think we can just reason with ourselves, right? No, I'm gonna make a New Year's resolution, and I'm never gonna eat that donut again. And then 3 days later, we're fucking pigging, stuffing donuts in our mouth, and we're like, and then we shame ourselves, and we don't understand. But they're called karmic cycles, and the Buddhist idea of breaking karma, breaking out of the karmic cycle, is to actually break that cycle, and it's not an easy thing to do because your brain is not something you could reason with. It's made out of meat, for fuck's sake.
Okay, hold on a second.
It doesn't work like you.
I want to read something Serb said. Just so everyone knows, reading to become an amateur therapist because you don't like therapists is just making you an unskilled version of the thing you don't like. I mean,
Good point.
I never said I'm reading to become an amateur therapist. I just like reading about it. So fuck you.
Yeah, and being an amateur therapist is tough, but there are ways like okay, the way that I broke out of drug addiction and alcoholism 16 years ago amounted to what I call a spiritual experience, which is also called basically a temporal lobe seizure or a nervous breakdown. But there are points where your life gets so fucking unmanageable that you manage to break through your habits in your brain with sufficient force that you can actually rewire some synapses in the base of your brain, in your basal ganglia, down deep. And you can actually make some changes that allow you to break that karmic cycle. And in Buddhism, they meditate and work for fucking years to break out of karmic cycles. So it isn't the easiest thing to do, and it isn't something you can do on demand. It's almost like, it's like spiritual experiences and enlightenment, they call it in Buddhism. You can't make that happen. You making it happen is the exact opposite of a spiritual experience, right? Yeah, it has to come from some deeper source. And
I
that
keep
is
wanting to
fucking
make a remark about a caramel frosting on a donut and calling it a karmic cycle.
Oh, yeah.
But I'm going to
Karmic
resist.
okay, karmic. What was the other karmic thing you were going to invent? We talked about it before.
A stationary bike, like a Peloton, we'll call it the karmic cycle, and then just
karmic cycle. Yeah.
say things in yoga.
Yeah. Yep. Those are good ideas, Scott. We should get together and market some of that shit.
Do they offer yoga as a second language on Rosetta Stone?
What was that? Wait, hold on. Which question?
Does the software Rosetta Stone offer a course in yoga?
Well, do they have one in Karen?
Yoga is a second language. I don't expect somebody to know full yoga, but
I actually have a lifetime. I've actually bought a lifetime thing for Rosetta Stone. I really need to get back into that. But I don't know. I need to check actually. Yoga.
I've often
Yogi
fantasized about
right?
learning a second language.
The language I want to learn is Karen. So I can go to the store and be a Karen.
There you go.
Oh.
I think that would be cool. I don't know. I just want to do it once. I keep watching other people do it, and I want to get in there and participate.
You want to speak fluent Karenicity.
Yeah. Yep. So James, you've been pretty quick on your how the fuck do you talk for 4 hours? Just you. You can talk for 4 hours. How do you do that? If I get on a stream by myself, after 30 seconds, I'm like, I should end the stream now.
I was kind of proud of myself. Me and James, of course, with other people involved, went like 4 or 5 hours one evening while you were heading to Texas.
Yeah.
But, after a while, I had to let other people just keep on talking. After about maybe 2.5 hours, I was just all give out. And I was going, how can James keep going? And, we ended up having a 5-hour stream.
Okay, the same way Jay can keep going. They got the gift of gab. I'm watching a stream.
I know James' secret. I know his secret. He doesn't let anybody else in the room, right?
Yeah, he does.
Yeah, because I just asked him a question and we all interrupted him.
Yeah. I hope I'm not pissing him off, but,
No, it's pretty rare for me to get upset. I did the other night, and I still feel bad about it. But normally I don't, right? So
that happens.
And I can go 7 or 8 hours and not run out of stuff to say. It's just that I sometimes feel bad for my audience because I'm like, surely they want to hear from someone else by now, but there's nobody else here, so they're stuck with me.
Right.
So yeah, it works out okay.
Sometimes it's okay to really get mad at people,
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm torn about the whole thing, but I don't know. I don't know. I need more time to think about it. So, in the meantime, yeah, I mean, I have a certain groove that I like to maintain on my channel, a certain mode, right? So I feel like if somebody wants anger, they can go to a different channel for that, right? And I feel like I let my audience down on that day, but moving forward, forgiving myself for it and learning from it, and it may take me some more time to process it. I process slowly. I'm not that smart, really. It's just that
you could have fooled me.
Well, I appreciate that. And the thing is, I spend so much time thinking about things that it would take like 100 hours to process something else, or something that it would take someone else like 1 hour to process. But when I'm done, I've really, really got it, right? and
Yeah.
so it's a turtle in the hair, or tortoise in the hair, right? So I'm not the fastest, but I'm still going to win the race in the end because I keep going, I keep going, I keep going. So
I come up with my most brilliant rhetoric when I'm in the whirlpool, sitting there, and like, and it's just like wonderful shit. And I don't know what it is about getting in really hot water and letting the pump run, and this brilliant rhetoric just it comes in my head, and then I get up. And it's like, yeah, what the fuck was I thinking? What was I saying again? It's like, and I
oh my
totally lose.
gosh, yeah, I have that happen even during sleep. Even in dreams, I'll
Yeah,
have a brilliant
right.
and I'll wake up and I'm like, I'm gonna don't forget, don't forget, don't forget. And the next morning, I'm like, damn it, I can't remember what it is. I promised myself I wouldn't forget. So
Yeah.
it's frustrating.
A Karen in the movie. Oh, The Mist really has a Karen. Oh, I gotta.
Yeah, though, people were Karens before we identified them as Karens, So you can go back to some of these
Okay. Why
Western.
Karen? I want to know why Karen? Who was the first? Who was patient zero for Karen? That's what I
That's a
want to
good
know.
question.
Yeah, right.
I don't
I think
know.
Patient
it's
zero.
contagious. Yeah, it's contagious. The Karen stuff.
Pretty sure it was my mom. I'm just saying. I'm nominating her for it.
I think it was my
What the fuck
dad.
is wrong with you?
Oh, fuck. My father, my father would get drunk as shit on weekends. He'd be sober all week and go to work, and then on Friday night he'd get his paycheck and he'd take us out to a restaurant, and he'd order spaghetti, and he would just put like 3 inches of pepper on the spaghetti, and he would either start sneezing to the point where everybody in the restaurant was uncomfortable, or he would start bitching about the spaghetti. It wasn't quite right, and we would almost always get thrown out of the restaurant, the entire family, before we got to take one bite. It was like, let's go out to eat. It's like, Dad, could we just eat at home? I'm too hungry to go out to eat. Like, because we never got to eat. Well,
Okay, I would.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. Well, no, I just want to say disclaimer. I am not a real therapist. Anything I say should not be listened to. There you go.
Right.
I said the disclaimer. I feel like
Yeah.
I have to give this disclaimer every fucking time now. Every time I talk about something psychology.
The other thing, when you come from a Eastern European family or Slovenian or whatever family like I did, you sit down for dinner. Mom makes this huge dinner. Mom and Dad sit down, and before you can take a bite, they've gotten into this huge fight, and somebody flips over the table. And it's like you never get any food unless you want to go down. We'd be down on the floor trying to lick up the food. It's like we'd be. It's fucking nuts. Almost every weekend, that was what it was.
Damn. Like that one time Jesus came through the temple. Like there was food everywhere.
Yeah, what the fuck? You flip over all the donut tables and shit like that, the vendors.
Yeah, the
Right.
little urns of coffee, next
The
to
mini
the
donuts, the mini donuts that they had set up. He goes and flips that over.
I just love the powdered ones.
And it's pretty
Yes.
ironic because today's Christianity is just the money changers. They ran out the regulars. Now the whole
Anyway.
religion is just money changers.
Yeah, they have full coffee shops inside their church, church building.
Anyway, I love that. Wait, hold on. Is that Hello Kitty? Is that a Hello Kitty bug? That's cool.
Nice.
I was wondering why my allergies keep flaring up.
Well, I'm gonna leave for a bit. I don't know if you don't know how long you're gonna go live,
Not
but I
very long.
figured.
It's spooky day, and I've got all kinds of candy to distribute. I got a Cub food box, and I'm
Well-
gonna get 3 trick-or-treaters.
Well, thank you for letting me on. Thank you for letting me on and contribute to the topic because this is definitely a topic that should be discussed in in a sober manner. But because it's so goddamn sensitive, you know what I mean. People can't talk about it because it's very easy to be misunderstood when it comes to this.
And when you have somebody in the family that you think is suffering from mental illness or drug addiction or alcoholism, the entire family needs to get treated. The entire family needs to get treated because there's an interplay in families because we love each other so much we fucking near kill each other. we smother each other. We make the problem worse, and nobody is untouched when you go through some sort of a terminal illness, and we're all going to go through it, right?
So here's a question. I wonder if like the occurrences of mental illness in families, the effect on the families is reduced in countries that have free healthcare, or at least very affordable healthcare.
Fuck, we have no treatment for mental illness.
Yeah.
We basically, the only thing we do for our really mentally ill people is we allow them to buy assault rifles anywhere they want.
Yeah, they can do that, but they may just need one.
Yeah. Oh, they might. Yeah.
Because they just might have a need to take out 30 people at a time.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Monkey for Banana says, imagine being able to afford to get help in this country. Yeah, would Americans, I mean, if tomorrow we had affordable health care for everybody, including mental health care, would people take advantage of it to the degree that they would actually get help for their family-related issues and dysfunctions? It's kind of hard to get somebody who hasn't, quote unquote, been diagnosed to admit that somebody else's mental illness has affected them.
I'll admit to it, but yeah, you're right. It's not common.
Yeah. So, but still, I would think that you could at least try to encourage a climate of openness to mental health intervention, were it paid for or by the government, or excuse me, by the American people. But yeah, it's just a great question, I think.
So the irony of that is if we were a major paradigm shift into that kind of mindset for a majority of people, like in a short period of time, there wouldn't be enough clinics or qualified personnel to treat them. The
Right.
amount of people that we have in the field right now is based on the assumption that the numbers are going to hold. And even that, we don't have enough, right? Like we just don't have enough. And I think part of it's because we don't pay them enough, and part of it's because it's a hard job. The better someone is qualified for that job, the less likely they are to be the ones doing it.
Yeah, it's a combination. You need to find somebody with the right temperaments and competencies to do it, but they also have to be educated and get licensed, because they're definitely in a position to mess somebody up, and mess themselves up too, if they're not the right person for a job like that.
Right, and I would say that our industry, as it's geared, doesn't do a good job of making sure that people that are licensed to be in those positions or hired to be in those positions are truly qualified. There's an awful lot of abusive and otherwise incompetent people in those fields, and there's no shortage
like having affairs with underage patients. Well, even having affairs with patients is unethical, and so it just seems to be a hairy trap for people.
I mean, I agree with that until I'm the patient and the therapist is hot, and then I disagree with you fully.
Yeah.
You know that now.
Right.
It's situational.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I mean, I've had my own run-ins with people that shouldn't be in that job at all, right? And the problem is that a lot of times they work for a larger clinic who has an even larger infrastructure that they work under. There is very little protection in place for patients to get abused. Very little. It's hard to prove, and chances are the organization that you report it to is just going to cover their asses, which is easy to do when you're a mental patient. Even if it's just outpatient, it's still easy to do. They can just jot a note down, this patient not credible, and all of a sudden ain't shit you can do about the abuse, and it's a catch-22. I've encountered a lot of people that have been abused in one way or another by therapists and psychiatrists, and in fact, the one that my doctor tried to get me signed up for, I read her online report, like her health grade report from patients, and holy shit, it's just person after person talking about the way that she was abusive and tried to screw their whole life over. And I asked my doctor, and I'm like, why'd you guys hire this lady? Have you read her reviews? It's crazy. He's like, yeah, I don't know. It's hard to find qualified people for the job, so She had the
But
credentials.
we'll
So we
just
hired
find
her.
unqualified people for the job. Yeah.
Yeah. So, yep, it's a dangerous thing, but it's a catch-22 because if you need the therapy, then you need it. But I've actually thought about doing a stream about this, how to be a good patient. We're always talking about whether or not someone's a good doctor, and people hardly ever talk about what it means to be a good patient because there's things you can do as a recipient of mental health therapy where you can maximize what you get from it and protect yourself from abuse. But nobody ever
My
talks
God.
about this. There's no class for that.
So Dave looks a lot like his son. That's pretty amazing. Did a
Oh,
Halloween
Dave,
video with your son. Yeah.
I fell
Fantastic.
asleep I fell asleep listening to them do the Halloween video. I thought that was wonderful. I
Okay.
meant to
Yeah,
thank you
yeah,
for
I
that.
gotta listen to it. I put it in the description, so and I'm sorry, chat. I have again not been paying attention because of a fucking squirrel. So
Squirrel.
yeah, squirrel. Whoa, fuck where?
All right.
Where?
So So yeah, so
Yeah.
one of the things you can just as an example, one of the things you can do as a patient that's in therapy is to stop periodically. First, they're aggressively writing things down. Don't interrupt them. They'll tell you to keep talking, but don't keep talking. And nobody's that talented at multitasking. They might think they are, but they're not. Science
Yeah.
has proven that people aren't as good at listening while they're writing as they think they are. And then the
Yeah.
other thing is, when they're done writing, ask them, especially when it's something important, ask them to repeat back to you what you've explained to them in their own words. Ask them to repeat it back to you.
Yeah. I'd like to
Because
see
quite
them.
often,
No.
yeah, they're going to get it wrong. So often they're going to get it wrong. And periodically, once a week, once a month, ask to see a copy of what they've got so far. Ask to see a copy of it so that you know, because sometimes they're writing shit down about you that you do not want them writing down about you. They haven't listened well, they haven't interpreted you fairly, and especially like if they're religious. For example, if you're religious and you're badmouth religion because you post-traumatic religious disorder or whatever,
Yeah.
if you're offending them in some way and you don't even know it, you're going to bias them, and they can be talking some shit about you in your own notes and you won't even know it. That's what happened to
Right.
me because this guy was very religious and he was also a
Uh-oh.
Trump supporter.
Uh-oh.
And
How can you be a counselor and be a Trump supporter?
they don't screen for that shit. They don't screen for how crazy you are. They just screen for whether or not you have papers that say
Okay.
other crazy people.
Weird.
Right. And yeah.
I'm gonna be speechless. I'm just gonna hit mute. I'm speechless now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You broke me,
Okay.
James.
I broke the internet. So, but
Yeah.
I've thought about doing a video about this, how to be a good patient, to maximize the care that you get, and to make sure that you're not about to be betrayed by a therapist. There are things.
Now,
there
have
are
they
steps
actually
you can
done
take.
studies on this?
Studies on which thing?
On how patients can help improve the process, like what you said.
I
asking.
couldn't find any. This is from personal experience, and it's
Yeah.
frustrating because there needs to be a class on this for like how to maximize what you get out of therapy, and there's not. And they should also teach it to therapy. Like you shouldn't even have to ask. It should be part of the treatment plan. Should be to repeat back to you what you've said in their own words every time it's something that matters, right? You shouldn't even have to ask them. They should do it, but they're not going to do it unless you ask them. And then,
Yeah.
I had to learn myself how to use my therapist to get done what I wanted to get done, right? And then I use my therapist as sort of a digging tool because she'll keep coming up with something, and she'll, it's like, that doesn't fit, and then all of a sudden, zing, she just fucking hits me in the gut, and it's like, yep, you got it, okay, but you got to work with them. I mean, you're in charge of pretty much. In that respect, you're in charge of guiding your therapist to help you out. But fuck, when you got something like dementia going on, that's no longer the case. You need a really good trained psychiatrist, not a fucking psychologist, a psychiatrist who can really understand, what's going on with you.
right, and like you said, in that situation, the family needs to be in therapy because they need to be trained on how
to treat the person.
Yeah, how to interact with that person.
Now, here's something else I want to bring up. Something that I recently discovered is there is a bipolar aspect to old age dementia. and not always. Not all people are bipolar, but basically, bipolar symptoms and bipolar behavior can really complicate uh, an aging brain. And I think some of the papers indicated that it was possible that the bipolar was actually the thing that was most causing the most damage, and that they start treating dementia with certain drugs, and they don't treat the bipolar part of it, and they actually make it worse. And so I would love if anybody had any resources, because this is something that I've dealt with all of my life, and as I get older, it could become a real problem for me, and I'd like to know more about it, and what the hell can be done to maintain it. Lithium is something that really killed my bipolar just dead in its tracks. Unfortunately, it also sapped the meaning out of my life, so I couldn't take it. And the other thing is, I was taking lithium when my sons were teenagers, and my sons never did drugs or alcohol or ever smoked, but their friends all did. And I came up one morning, and these fucking little teenagers were trying to snort my lithium. And I'm like, are you fucking... Lithium is poisonous at a certain dosage. It'll kill you, right?
Sure.
And they're up there snorting my lithium capsules, and I'm like, okay, this is not okay, children. It's like, fuck. No. So I had to hide my lithium. It never occurred to me that they would snort my fucking lithium,
Wow. Yeah, I think the first time kids are able to understand English, they need to hear never take somebody else's pills.
Never snort mom and dad or grandpa and grandma's fucking pills unless you know what they're doing, what they are.
And
right?
If somebody is snorting it up their nose, you probably shouldn't do it either.
Yeah, probably should do that. Yeah, that's what I thought. Anyway, that was a little aside, but okay, what I got here is a tote box, a grocery tote box. I don't know if you know how big those are. That's more than half filled with Hershey bars and peanut butter cups. And I'm going to get 3 trick-or-treaters. So my goal is to put 90% of that into 3 bags tonight. So anyway.
Wow.
So the
I
kids...
I have no candy in the house, and I'm going to turn off the garage door light, the light above the garage door, and I'm going to eat pasta for supper. That's going to be my treat. And the trick is to not be noticed by anybody who has a costume on.
Yeah. I'm going to put a floodlight on our huge yellow maple tree. It's like the leaves have turned yellow. And like we live on the end of 2 cul-de-sacs. They had 1 cul-de-sac, and then they punched a hole in it and built another road, put another cul-de-sac. And all of my neighbors shut their lights off. So the kids have to walk down this dark, spooky path. And to get to my house, and they can't see it. So that's why I only get 3 trick-or-treaters. But boy, are they going to win big tonight. I'm excited.
Mike, I need directions to your house.
I take this huge mixing bowl, like the biggest mixing bowl you can imagine, fill it up, and I dump it in their bags. And the kids get so excited they almost fucking have a stroke. I'm probably going to kill a kid eventually. But yeah, fill the bag up. Pretty
awesome.
Cool.
Hashtag
one year we had 27, and we had 3 Cub food box, 3 of those tote boxes filled with candy, and we gave away almost all of it. So
awesome. Cool. Yeah, our favorite holiday is always the day after the holidays, so that we can get all the discounted candy. Yeah, that's our favorite holidays.
Yeah, $26 a bag now for fucking candy. It used to be $12.
That's crazy, man.
$26. That hurt. That's why they only got 1 tote box this year instead of 3. Otherwise, I would have had to put 1 whole tote box in every, or I would have put 1 whole tote box in every kid's bag.
Right.
Anyway.
Wow.
We've done that for about 10 years. We totally fucking over feed the kids, right, with gigantic bowls of candy. And it's amazing. We had these repeat customers for a while, and we heard them walking off telling their friends, I told you so, this is a house we should come to all the time.
Wow.
And One little kid told his parents, he said, next time we're just going to go to Mike's house. We're not going to go anywhere else.
Wow.
It's like, why walk, right? Why do all that walking if, you just go to Mike's house? Yeah, anyway, kind of cool. But that's
cool.
why I got to get going soon here, guys. Yeah,
All right.
Got to go set some stuff up. But anyway, I really hope fucking people can start changing their attitudes about mental illness and how to deal with the elderly, how to deal with their parents. And the other fucking thing is this constant, like, okay, you lose your keys often all throughout your life. You lose things, you forget words, you forget band names. You can't find an actor's name or whatever. But when you get older, every fucking time you do it, everybody around you, oh, what's wrong with Mike?
Yeah,
He forgot what the superior colliculus was. It's like, fuck, stop with the fucking ageism. If you stay healthy, you like when you get older, I think your mind fills up with so many cross-connected memories and facts and, knowledge that you have trouble digging it out of there. You have trouble finding the connections to find it. So you're going to stumble more and more the more you fill your mind up. Everybody thinks your mind is unlimited. Fuck, it is. It's very limited in how many cross connections. I mean, you can stuff more and more data up there, but you're going to have more and more trouble recalling it. And that happens.
Older stuff. You there's certain things you may recall just right away, but other stuff will get buried deeper in the connections a little bit. Looser in terms of being able to, map through the neurons in your mind to remember something.
Yeah, but even me, myself, judging myself, I mean, I am on guard for this dementia, right? That happens because I'm 71 years old, right? And like, I'm always like second guessing myself and like, oh God, why did I forget that fact? Why wasn't I able to tell you about this particular structure in the cell? Why couldn't I remember it? Or I'll go back and look at my books where I've highlighted them. And I remember like 10, it's like, who the fuck highlighted this? Because I can't remember any of this shit. And then I start worrying about myself, and it's like, I don't know, it's a real conundrum, for older people. And then to have other people fucking judging you and constantly picking on you because you forgot where your key. Like one time I put my keys in the fridge. Well, that was when I was 50 years old, but I couldn't find them anywhere. They were in the fucking fridge with the groceries.
Yeah,
and I'm like,
relate to that. So
yeah, I don't know.
Full disclosure, I am currently, my doctor's currently scheduling tests for me to test to see if there's something wrong with my brain because I am worried about early dementia. And
really,
because it's worse than it should be, like noticeably worse. And I've had some scary events lately, and there's a lot going on, right? There's the chronic sleep deprivation where I'm not getting enough regular sleep or REM sleep. I wake up 28 times an hour, and they don't know why. You can't get enough REM sleep doing that shit. And then I've got the complex PTSD besides, so it's the brain fog. And he's like, it's going to be pretty impossible to tell if you've got legitimate dementia or if this is just the side effects of these problems that need to be fixed. Yeah. So they're scheduling some brain tests and stuff like that, but it's really been a struggle for me lately. So, I don't know. So this hits home for me because my kids my kids are having a harder and harder time being patient with me. And so this definitely hits home. So,
and I'm asking myself, how in the fuck will I know when I am that kind of crazy? I mean, how am I going to fucking know when it's happening to me? And the thing about not being able to recall something, don't worry about that because the way the brain works, being able to recall something when you're having a conversation is something that's going to fail a lot. I mean, your brain is designed, not designed to be able to always pick out a fact. Sometimes you're going to, and the way it works is there's maxima and minima in the brain, basically in areas of the brain. And when you try to recall something, what you're doing is your thalamus is actually homing in on a particular part of your cortex, right? And if you don't have the proper connections in that part of the cortex to remember that band name, you're never going to be able to remember it. And it's called the tip of the tongue feeling, or the tip of the tongue syndrome. It's like it's right on the tip of my tongue, but I can't remember it. And the more you try to remember it, the less able you will be to remember it. What you need to do is you need to relax so that your thalamus blooms out and and lights up more your head. So what you have to do is distract yourself with something that has nothing to do with what you were looking for. Well, the neat thing is that when you run into something like that, it will store a trace, like it'll store that particular problem or question in a structure called the hippocampus, and it will pop up again. So 5 minutes later, oh yeah, I know what that band name is. It's this, right? But it's only after you quit looking. The more you look, the harder it's going to be to find. And they've done a lot of research on this. And if you actually look at how the brain works, you will see how fucking bad this problem is when you're trying to recall something. So don't worry about shit. Don't fucking pick on
I had that happen. So I did have that happen this morning specifically. And it was about a phrase that I've used like 1,000 times. And it was like, why can't I remember this? But it was worse than that. I was actually at my doctor's appointment, I don't know, a few weeks ago. And when the nurse called me back to the doctor's, to the patient room, I couldn't remember why I was there, how I got there, anything. Like I was just suddenly there. Like, how am I here?
Yeah.
Like, where is this? And they're not sure. Did I sleepwalk because of how much sleep I don't get? And I drove myself there in like an REM state, which would be scary and dangerous. Or did I, is it Alzheimer's or, like some other kind of early dementia thing? Or is it PTSD? And like, I just had like an anxiety attack and that like made it to where I couldn't like remember things. They don't know. So that's
the way manic episodes manifest too. Like sometimes you'll get going and then all of a sudden you'll find yourself somewhere where you don't know you are. And
I had no idea.
One time I went to the doctor and they did a bunch of tests on my eyes and they put in these super fucking weird dilators. And they told me not to drive, but there I was all by myself, 10 blocks from home. So I decided to drive home. And I was like very disoriented because I was driving like real slow and careful, and I was on city streets on the side, and I was driving along, and I forgot. I thought I was on Portland, and I was actually on Nicollet, and I took a right, and I ended up lost. And I called my kids, and I said, "There's the weirdest thing happened to me. I don't know where the fuck I am right now." And so, I think I'd just gotten an iPhone at that point, and I wasn't used to using maps or navigation. Pulled that out and got my way and found my way home, but I was way the fuck off from where I thought I was. But it had to do with my eyes. It had to do with the fact that I was not seeing things like I normally do. Because when you drive somewhere, you drive on auto, right? And when you drive on auto, your brain is processing all sorts of keys and signals that you become accustomed to and you're not conscious of. So you manage to get home just fine. And you say, oh, yeah, my mind is working fine and I know where I'm going. But fuck up your eyes a little bit, and all of a sudden you're in la la land, and it's like, that scared the fuck out of me. And that was, I think that happened about maybe 15, 20 years ago or something. So, I mean, it was really odd. And I know the feeling when you're in all of a sudden it's like, where the fuck am I? It's like, what the fuck is going on?
That's happened to me a few times, like when at the onset of a migraine. And I think it is the weird visual issue I get where I just can't tell where I am, even though I'm in the place I would normally just know, Also, that's happened to me after, I think the one time I ended up like 40 miles north of where I needed to be on the way home one day was when I had worked a long week and then a 12-hour overnight shift, and then I was just in a trance, and there was an exit that I missed, and I just kept going and kept going and kept going. And the only change in the landscape that made me realize I was in the wrong place was this huge concrete plant, that you never see
Right.
anywhere else over off to the north a little bit. And those are some scary feelings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just remember, your brain's made of meat. It's not a fucking computer. It's not a machine. It's not, it doesn't function like that. It's going to fuck up, and when that happens, don't be overly concerned. Be concerned, try to avoid it, but give yourself a break. Anyway.
Fair enough. I appreciate that.
Yeah. So, children, boys and girls, buffaloes.
Do you, I was just curious about James. Do you get lost in thought a lot, like really deep musing about something?
Yeah, but not to where I become oblivious to my surroundings.
Okay, I was just wondering about that. If you'd been thinking about something in particular in the waiting room, and they called you forward, but you were still mostly thinking about whatever you were thinking about.
No, because it took me a few minutes to figure out. I mean, I recognized that it's a doctor's office and a nurse. I'm like, what doctor's office? Why am I here? How did I get here?
Yeah. Oh, that's a little bit different.
Yeah.
Well, that's the other thing that I want to point out is that this particular thing where you get like fucked up like that, where everything like becomes very, very strange to you, right? That's also related to high IQ and creative thought. So basically, very creative people who get lost in, the details of like this conceptual space can end up getting fucked up, every now and then. So this thing that allows us to not perceive well, not exactly take reality, not follow those habitual patterns that we follow, that we trust our mind to follow. Those are the things that are also going to allow you to be very creative. So
yeah, that could be it.
There's two sides of the coin. So anyway, yep. Okay, boys and girls, I think we're going to end for the day. That's okay.
Sounds good to me. Have a great holiday, everybody.
Yeah, so you can stick around for like 3 minutes after I end the stream there, so we can do like an exit. Like we have an exit interview that we like to give people, like to find out if we've harmed you in any way, if we've caused PTSD or brain damage. Or
we also have a great timeshare program that we think you'd be interested in.
We have some disclaimers we want you to sign and some, NDAs and things like that. So hang on a second.
Well, I have no sense of time and I don't like to share, so that could be a problem.
Yeah. Okay, so we're going to end the broadcast. Goodbye, boys and girls.
Everyone. And Gerst Streams just showed up. Oh well.
Oh God, it's a good time to let's get the hell out of here before
we jump out.
it's all. Okay.